Hello, this is Bob Palmerton. Welcome to StudioSense. Today I'm doing an acrylic underpainting for pastel painting. You can see the winter landscape off to the right. And if you saw the lattice composition video, you'll notice that I had done this particular photo and laid out the composition using various grids and vertical and horizontal lines and diagonal lines to create the very simple composition for this painting. So what I'm doing here is the foliage was like dark brown, reddish orange. So I'm doing an underpainting of acrylic in orange for the foliage on the tree line, and we'll also do the same for the snow hill there. And so the focal point is just about really where those two top sections meet. That little gap in the upper right is where the brightest part of the painting is, and that's going to be the focal point, is where the sun is really shining on the snow um, at the horizon, and some really deep, dark values in this painting, especially off to the right and down through the almost like the bottom half of the landscape between the dark reddish brown color of the foliage and the dark blues that we'll see in the snow and that will create in the snow. The 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 masses, when you kind of squint at this photo, you really pick up, and if you did a notan of this, it'd be interesting. It'd be very simple. Also, you really pick up the triangular shapes of the dark mass on the right and the not so dark mass up on the left on the hill. And there's a tree line back there, a bunch of evergreen trees, and just bushes that have lost their leaves at the tree line. And on the hill itself are clumps of grasses. There were yellow, orangish type colors. It was a clear day, as you could tell by the sky. A little bit of clouds up there, but it was pretty much a full sun day. Beautiful day, great day for cross-country skiing. And I had taken this photo while skiing at Sandra Richardson Park. That's in York Township in southeast Michigan. So real simply, I'm using basic acrylic paints here with an old brush to get that underpainting. And I wanted the underpainting to represent reasonably well the values of the pastels. So the darker darks, the lights, the midtones, etc. And that's why I'm going over some of these areas with additional acrylic to darken some spots. As you can see, the top of the hill was darker than the further right side of that hill. The highlights or the brightest areas in this painting, in addition to the focal point at the end of the horizon, is a section at the top of the near the top of the snow hill there. That was actually a sledding hill where some kids were sledding several days earlier on the other side of the hill, not over the grasses, but on the other side of the hill. So when you look at the painting itself, as I said, the lower half is almost in shade. So what I'm doing here is the foliage, the grasses on the snow hill, I will make darker than the the foliage at the tree line above. And you'll see when I'll go back is I'm taking from a very simple plain old red and yellow um, acrylic paint, but then I brought in some alizarin crimson to darken, and you'll see that shortly, to darken some of the clumps of grasses and the lower portion to really reflect the shaded areas. So it's just a matter of going back and forth, and of course, acrylic dries quickly. So as those first sections dried off, I was able to go over them again with a little more of the same color, but also of different values. So really just going back and forth, working on this underpainting. And so the idea of the underpainting is there's a nice orange glow to this painting, so I wanted that orange base in the acrylic paint for the foliage. So sometimes I'll do an acrylic underpainting and it'll be the complementary color to help the pastel pop, if you will, once the pastel is applied. In this particular case, I'm not doing this, and you'll see what I use for the snow. It's not going to be an orange or an orange color. It's actually going to be blue. So we're going to use some deep blues in acrylic for the snow. Here I'm bringing in the alizarin crimson and a little bit of darker shades for the lower half of the painting. And I've kind of mapped out the path of snow from the horizon spot where the focal point is up through toward the foreground. There was actually a little bit of there were some ski tracks, and I think I skied this, in fact, up along the left of the darker tree line up on the right. You kind of just ski back there, and you could ski back into the evergreen trees further out. This is right off Willis Road in York Township, right near Saline, Ann Arbor, Pittsfield Township, etc. So here I'm looking at adding the blues. Well, obviously I'm adding the darkest blue where we have the darkest value of the snow. And this is just simply a basic blue acrylic. Um, what I do like is every so often I like to bring in cerulean blue, and I'll bring that in shortly. And here again, it's a thin wash, but it'll dry quickly, and I'll go over it even further to reflect the darker values. Here's a little bit of that cerulean blue. So what I'll do is I'll bring the value of the blue higher, a little lighter as we head up toward the hill. And even if we go further up the hill, we'll even mute that a bit with some white to get even a lighter sky blue type blue up above. So again, going over the sections for the dark blues, and some of this would show through in the final pastel. I'll show throw in some different colors, even purple and deep pinks in the shade would be really interesting to show. And a lot of that is a reflection of what type of lighting is hitting the snow at certain times of the day and whether or not the sky is clear or cloudy. So I'll just keep going over the painting. What I found interesting was really cool on this, of course, blue and orange are complementary colors, so you can see how kind of vibrant it is when you put the blue up around the orange spots, if you will, of the shrub. So I think this technique is great to get the values down and kind of fun to just put some of the basic colors down, but it's also just a blast to do this. It's just like kind of feels like I'm back into kindergarten, almost doing finger painting in this sense. So again, we'll bring up the value of the blues when they're hitting more light. As you can see, the distance there is lighter than down in the lower portion of the shaded snowy areas, and I'll bring in some whites to help lighten it up even further. But look at some of that contrast there between the orange and the blue. It's almost like red and blue. If you see how when those two colors are put together, they're kind of jumping out off the page at you. You almost get some of that here. So we'll see if we could get some of this impact of some of this underpainting in the final pastel painting. I leave the sky blank. I like to do the sky with pure pastel. Sometimes I'll do a pinkish sky, if you will. I kind of prefer like a watercolor for a sky underpainting. It's just softer and a little more muted because sky is so bright. But again, the brightest value in this painting on a sunny day will be the snow in that distance there. So we'll work that up. You can see how I'm lighting up that area just to provide that type of a guidance. So after laying out this acrylic underpainting, the next step was to pick the pastels that will be used. So here's the palette. On the left side is the snow. The lightest values on the right edge of that, and the darkest, of course, way off to the left. And the right side of that palette are the foliage, And of course, there's the dog staring at me, wanting to go for his walk today, right next to the acrylic palette. That's about it for this underpainting, and stay tuned for the update on the real pastel painting. Thank you.